evening, everyone. Hope you are having a fantastic day here, learning and gaining insights from our esteemed panelists. So, joining to that, we have a group of experts who are the masters of their field. So, they'll be sharing their insights on a very interesting topic that is innovative lease agreements, win-win solutions for mall operators and retailers. So first things first, like while leasing a space in a mall, we need to take care of a lot of things and we need to make a lot of decisions. So for those decisions only, just wanted to understand a few things from our panelists, like what are the most important and the simple things that retailers should focus on while leasing a space in malls. So first of all, I'll just start with Sahil to share his insights.
Hello. Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. See, when we look for a space in mall, the first thing topmost thing what we say is that where our kind of TG is coming, irrespective of the probably the flows and all that. The first most important thing where our kind of TG is coming. And second, when they are walking towards the place what we are taking, the TG where we feel right come, will I come the first or the last? Do I get that accessibility, visibility? Because directories and nowadays the mobile and all that helps you a lot to understand where you are, but once you find it where a store is, how quickly you can access that, and once you can access it, how quickly you can find that and you can get into it. That's something which I see that. Third thing which I always see that when a person is parking his vehicle, how quickly he can access. It's not only like my store is just in front of parking, but how the escalators movements are, how the customer movements are. There was a time when we used to see that there used to be a force movement for the customers and all that. Nowadays, those things are not working. Like you can't force a customer to go to the last and take a U-turn and all that. So nowadays, malls are getting, and they have understood that part. You can't force your customer to really go that corner and come. So it's important that when they are walking that aisle, how quickly you can access that.
Great. So same thoughts on this topic from Preeti also. Would like to understand from you, like, what are the basic things that you should focus on while leasing space in malls or high street?
So hi, good evening, everybody. Taking a thread from where Sahil left, that accessibility is, I think, the key because today when a customer has everything at a push of his butt, like at a push, sitting on his couch, very conveniently ordering online. So I think convenience is the first thing which we all really focus on. Certainly, ever since we've been into retail and talking, I think we've been talking about location, location, location. So I think that's the most important factor. While we are talking malls, fortunately they are more organized than high streets. They are zoned. There is a particular zoning for a particular segment of a retailer, and I strongly believe that works very well. I mean, many a times we get excellent locations at maybe some other zones, and I am a strong believer of that having a maybe an excellent store in a wrong zone is as good as having a wrong store in a right zone. So this is the most important factor. However, on the outsides, when we talk, what is the TG, what are the demographics? We had a session of tech. We all are very, very well equipped with too much of data around that, who's the kind of customer who's shopping your product, where is the localities they're shopping from. So these are certain factors that, make us decide that where we should be, the part of a mall or a high street, and also the city dynamics. So this is the couple of factors that we keep in mind while we are choosing a location.
Great, Preeti. So, we have seen a lot of changes in lease agreements recently, and during the pandemic and post the pandemic, the rise of brands has led to this thing. So, also, Sahil would like to understand from you your perspective, like what kind of changes are there in the lease agreement that we have seen recently, post COVID and pre-COVID things.
See, first thing, in my opinion, what all the retailer have really tried to incorporate the um, what I say repair mechanism, or in terms of what will be the force measure, because this everybody have rightly said, and they said it's a force measure. How do you really deal with it so that it becomes a win-win for both the parties? Okay, so that's one thing which everybody have really started thinking on those lines. Up till now, what I remember pre-pandemic force measure used to be just a clause because your legal will not allow you to delete that. So you have to keep that, nothing more than that. But now that clause have become very important. That what will be the lead measures, what will be the decisions, and how do you deal with such kind of events? That part have really become one key element in the agreement. Second thing, what I feel that post-pandemic, everybody have understood that there will be a high and lows in business. That how do your commercials and all those things, you are taking care of those parts. Like during pandemic, people have seen that sale have gone rock bottom. But post-pandemic, many a brand have seen a pent-up demand. So during that time, you have covered the losses by renegotiating the rentals and all that. But in lease agreement, you have seen post-pandemic, because of pent-up demand, you end up paying too much. And everybody was cutting their pockets so that at least the inventory start moving up. So how do you take care of those kind of highs, which was unexpected? So like probably by putting a upper cap on the outflows, or by really understanding that how we are going to do a annualization, how do we do a annual impact on those kind of things.
Great. So also, as you mentioned about, the pent-up demand. So also, like profitability as a factor, how do you see this thing as an important factor playing a role in, leasing a space in malls?
See, if you see, I think the post-pandemic, everybody have now settled to a large extent in terms of their all kind of business plans and all that. Next year, I feel all brand will be hard pressed on the profitability. All the promoters or be it the stakeholders or individual owners have now started asking for the profitabilities, which is going to be a key factors. So somewhere we have to the lease agreement on that per se, if I say, are going to change a lot. I would say there will be again a wave towards the renegotiation, which I think lot of brand have already started. How that is going to impact, that's we have to yet to see. But one thing in the existing agreements which are now we are signing, profitability people are putting a good thought on it, which I said in my previous comment on the upper caps. How do we restrict our outflows? Is there any way that so sometime we have to really discount um, well to make it sure we gain that top line or we move our inventories. But during that discount, is that revenue share is acting as a spoiler? Because one side you are cutting your pocket to try to get the footfall, try to get the top line. On the other side, on that top line, which you have burned your margins, and to get that you have to pay to the landlords also. So that part, that's where like a lot of brands and the legal team and everybody have started thinking on it. How do we can really see, how do we cap our outflows? How do we see that, and this will help us rent revenue ratio? How do we confine our rent revenue ratio? There was a time when we people say if there's a standard rent revenue ratio, it's a good scenario. But I see a standard rent revenue ratio will not work. It should come down. With the increasing revenue, it should come down. It can't be stagnant at 3%, 5%, or 10%. With the time, it should come down. That's when you can really ask for profitability.
Great answer. So also, Preeti would like to understand from your perspective, have you observed any kind of trend towards, longer or shorter lease tenures among retailers that we have seen in the recent days?
So yeah, like COVID has changed a lot. So initially we had landlords in malls pushing up for lock-ins, which was larger. Where as a retailer we wanted to give the least, and as the other side of the table they wanted to have the max. But today we see a lot of flexibility, at least from the mall side, because it's limited centers, limited place. They also want to increase their ROIs, like Sahil said that it's the revenue. They also want to hit that number. So in case the brands are not performing, they're also not very rigid about you stay, you have to pay your lock-in. So we get to a mutual agreements, and we be there. Also, whether the lease agreement should be short or long depends on the kind of retailer you are, with the kind of product you're dealing with. If you're an F&B, there's a higher investments on equipments, etc. They prefer long-term leases. For an apparel retailer, I'll not say short-term works. I hope no mall management person is sitting here and listening this. But otherwise, a reasonable time works. So this is, I think, a relevant change which we've seen. And also, I'd like to add the topic of force majeure, which Sahil picked. So I think pandemic as BT, which I'm sure we all agree sitting on this panel, I think lease agreements are largely legally drafted documents, but the force majeure clause during pandemic taught relationship. I think it was very fluid while it came to a definition whether it's a pandemic or not. The only thing which helped the retailers win was a relationship basis negotiation, which brought us out of that time. I mean, that's what I think is a big change we all have learned, and we are a little more flexible with regards to those terms.
I really agree with that. So like pandemic in terms of the business and in terms of personal life, everybody have learned it. Relationship matters. It's all about the relationship. Be it in terms of with your neighbors. Like I remember before pandemic in Mumbai, it's very the way you stay at your societies was very different. Nowadays, it's have increased. The same with our business. With our landlords, it's more with the relationship. We understand their pain and they have also started understanding our pain. It's not only they need this much price, that's it. I don't care.
So I like to add something on that because what has happened is pandemic has made it more practicable also. They have become more practical to understand the pain that a retailer has gone through. Now, like Sahil said before, in the earlier agreements, the force majeure was one definition and one clause tucked away somewhere, which was just there because it had to be there without any meaning. But today, I have seen specifically there's a commercial angle which is included in it. So today there is a specific word mentioned as pandemic or lockdown. And there are some specifics that if it's a partial lockdown, then what kind of commercial? If it's a full lockdown, then what kind of? So it has become even more practical than it was earlier. You know, that it was just a clause which was there for because it was a lease agreement, but today it has got even more practical sense as to why it is there.
If I'm sorry, if I may ask, Ruchit, this is a debate I've been having with my colleagues and legal department. Do you think it is advantageous to really define this? If you say it's, say, partial pandemic, I will only pay 50% of my rent. Don't you think that you're losing that opportunity of maybe not paying 100% on certain cases? This is really, I mean, this is a debate that I've been having very to and fro with my legal and my colleagues.
No, my example would be from an F&B point of view, correct? Because I come from an F&B background. Because what we learned from pandemic is delivery business was very much alive for F&B at least, correct? And wherever there wasn't a reach through high street or cloud kitchens, something like that, malls did play a role. And in that, there was quite a help also given by malls to get to that level where a proper channel was built up for delivery business to thrive. So in that sense, it makes a difference for us. And today, by defining that, what happens is you can actually take out the conflict that can happen tomorrow because something is there in the document. And generally with malls, we have seen this, that whenever, although the documents are very stringent when it comes to malls, but whatever is written is actually followed.
Just on a lighter note, see, Preeti, it helps to shift the start point. You have to start from 0 to take it to 100. It just helps you to shift the start point to 50.
I'm with you. I just put it on a thing because this is a debate we've been having on and off, whether to put it explicitly, clearly in the agreements or leave it like, to see that where you reach. So just on a lighter note, I shared this.
So just my two bits on it, since we take very large formats, 40,000 to 50,000 square feet. And yesterday I had a marathon session internally where we were waiting an agreement for our third venue. And this was one point, okay? But we've been going to and fro. And for us, what we feel what works is to keep it open. So it's still, we've kept it mutual because to put a number and what would happen, what would not happen. So I think it will also vary from, what kind of situation and the relation, what kind of size you're having. Probably, I think, for a QSR, smaller formats, you could put in a number, but would be a challenge.
Great. So I think you have been having an interesting discussion over here. So just wanted to understand from Preeti, from her perspective, like, what things do you prefer? I mean, is it the large format stores that you prefer more, or just the number of stores that you have?
See, both works. Honestly, that, retailer has a choice of doing flagships, large format, or doing many number of stores. Depending on the kind of business you are, what is your strategy, what is the market reach you want to have. So it's a culmination of a lot of factors that makes a retailer decide the way they want to take. But ultimately, the optimal approach is that what is the goal you want to achieve. So, if you do flagships, they have their advantages of convenience, access, visibility, proximity. You have as a retailer, you can give that good navigation experience, that you can give that awe to the customer, what the person is looking at. And of course, the retailer invests a lot into when it comes to flagships with regards to engagements, etc., which differs their customer to become the loyal customers. The disadvantages are, if even if one doesn't work, it affects significantly to your P&Ls. For a brand like us, which has got larger reach, we honestly believe into a cluster approach. We do some flagships out of whatever number of stores we want to do a particular year, and then we cluster it with some multiple small cities and small areas, because this helps us to cover the gaps largely. Understanding what is the demographics, what is the competition landscape. So it helps us reach to the customer in a larger way than just doing few. So, it's, I think, the bottom line is that you should be flexible to adapt very quickly to the market changes. If the need is to go with many stores or a flagship, I think it's a decision which is very dynamic and it changes every 3 months. We used to be doing annual AOPs, but I think it's every 3 months we relook that, how we want to re-strategize our expansions. So this is what I think I like to sum up with.
Great. So I think customer engagement is the key here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the customer, and today's time, I think the product is a hero. I think that's the two things which the retailer is, location, everything will work. I think the customer should go satisfied. It should not be carrying just the product. He should be carrying an experience in the bag, and the product has to be the hero. I think this is the two most important factors.
Great. So also, Tarandeep would like to understand from your perspective, as a product, you don't have a specific product. But the thing is, how do you utilize your brand strength to negotiate favorable terms? As you maintain a strong presence in retail malls.
So again, coming back, so I hope there are a lot of gentlemen and ladies from the mall management here. So we are an international brand. Okay, so when of course we approach them, what we bring, what Bounce brings on table compared to any other similar experience zone is we have international standards. So of course we are a premium brand. Okay, if you'll walk into any Bounce versus any other competitor, you step onto the paddings, you will come to know the difference. So we have 2 inches to 8 inches of padding with technology which is interwound. So we have 2 levels of padding. There is propylene sheet. The hinges are different because what we try to educate and explain the mall tenants are that we are bringing a premium brand which has the highest level of safety. Now, it is a catch-22 situation because sometimes what malls do typically, they have a set standard. I have a mall, I want to have a retail zone, I want to have a F&B zone, and there will be an entertainment zone with an FAC 5 to 10,000, 15,000 square feet area. So the challenge for us first and foremost is to get a 40,000 square feet arena, but that again helps us because we can leverage and get better rates. The biggest challenge what we face is the height. So we need 8 to 10 meters. So that becomes another challenge. But what we've realized is malls who understand the value you bring in with the quality of product. So we get to close to 3 lakh footfalls. So Bombay property do we 100 birthday parties a month. That's our average. So that is the kind of love we bring to the mall. And just like what my friend was sharing, for us, it does not depend. I don't want the bang on center place when you walk into the mall. You give me the last possible corner, I'm okay. Because for our kind of model, it does not matter. We are a destination. We know we can pull people to that section. So it is a mix of a lot of solutions. I can't give you a specific answer, which goes into finally convincing the mall. But what we've seen, what we've realized is malls have now become more open. So they are even ready to collaborate with us during their design stage. That is what most of them come back to us. That, let's figure out during the design stage itself so that we can give you a section which does not lead into their bread and butter leasing space, and they can give us the required height, the required footage.
So I think malls are implementing new spatial clauses for a brand like yours. So also, for long-term and short-term leases, what kind of benefits that your brand faces, or what kind of risk it is taking currently?
So for us, it is all about long term. We look at least 12 years. The worst we go down to is 9 years. Again, it's the same basic principle. The capex which we put in with every store is, between 18 to 20 crores for every store, which is a 40,000 square feet indoor arena. So for us, it has to be long term. Of course, you all would know the theoretical benefits of long-term lease versus a short-term lease, but the long-term lease helps us get down on the commercials, so we can negotiate well on the rentals, whether it is square feet or it is, on a ref share. Typically for all FSCs, we just attended the earlier session, where all the FSC players were here. Our dream would always be to have a ref share model with the malls, which works on NX percentage. So that helps us also balance our seasonality, and that also gives the mall an uptake. So they know in summer season when we do 40% of our business, the numbers fly, they can also fly. So for us, it's a long-term lease, and that is what we look at across all formats.
So Sahil would like to understand from your perspective how beneficial it is for a long-term lease or a short-term lease, or it should be a flexible lease term.
See, in our case, we always look for a long-term lease because, like for a CDIT business, it's a like we say it's a repeat purchase. But the repeat generally what we like normal theoretically, if you see, repeat is probably every month or every week and all that. But in our case, it's probably after 2 years, 3 years. And then in our case, the kind of for us the capex is high, but more than that is inventory keeping cost is very high. If I have to take care of my total capex, what I really have to take out of it, it has to be a long lease. Like what he rightly said is it helps you commercially, and then it helps you in building that trust that this store is there from so long. And then electronics today, people are scared when they have to buy a product. They always been more concerned about the services. Will they get a service with Tata? They know that with Tata that shortage is there. But still, being Indian, we always feel to have a face-to-face conversation. And if I have to shift my store every 9 years or 5 years, it won't make sense. So we generally go for 18 years, 21 years, depending on the real estate and depending on the different. That's why, to some extent, we have a limited presence in malls. So generally, how malls really look at that they want to have the what I say uptake once after 5 years and 9 years. That's why if I say my a total count of 500 stores approx, my mall presence will be same 10 to 12%. Rest of them are like standalone. Where a landlord always prefer to have a long lease. It's tough to lease a high street property than a mall, or I would say a successful mall.
Great. So next question would be for Sreejit. I mean, just wanted to understand from you, I mean, how important it is for a brand like yours uh, to select your location. I mean, is it the high street that you choose more, or is it the mall's location that you choose more?
So it's a combination of both actually. Both are equally important because malls give you immediate success. Let me put it that way, correct? Because the end of the day, what a cafe brings to the mall is actually a place where shopping is happening. You're in the middle of it, but suddenly you feel that you need a break, correct? Or you want to sit down for some time. You just need to cool off. A cafe actually helps. And what we see is the kind of customer who comes into a mall is already a filtered customer who doesn't mind spending that kind of money for a cup of tea or for snacks. So the payback period that we talk about when we talk about capital expenditure, it's much better when it comes to malls because of this footfall that we get. Whereas on high streets, selective high streets in the city, a city may have two or three good high streets. Other than that, the gestation period to convert into a very high revenue store takes that much more time at the high street. So it's a combination of both. We are present in all the best malls, and we are present in all the best high streets of the cities also.
Great. So Preeti would like to understand from your perspective, like, do you believe the consumer mindset is changing and they are preferring outlets in malls? or is it just the high streets?
Well, as I said, that certainly there's a huge change in the consumer behavior after COVID. And with regards to outlets and the malls, it's a very, very, very wide arena what we are talking. So again, it's the product, it's the brand strategy, it's your target audience. So if your target audience is a value seeker, yes, it's an outlet mall. If your target audience is where you're trying to touch an aspiration, you want to be the brand who a customer aspire to wear, probably will not be your target. So it's about, how you want to position yourself. So certainly there are all kind of people, like, we've heard in the sessions earlier as well that, we used to have some 10 days of USS both seasons, but today practically we see silent sales across running in the year. So we have somewhere spoiled the consumer in some way. We have always throughout the year, the last of the best in the store, which consumer can go buy, purchase. But I think it is a very, very clear definition of a value seeking consumer. And there is a market and product and brand places for that. And brands which are aspirational or want to be aspirational. So I think India is a wide, it has a huge volume and a huge consumption. So I think it can feed both kinds. That's what I will say. So for us as a brand, we are a mix of outlets as well, because yes, we work on a kind of a combination of like one value outlet for all, say 10 fresh stores. So that's the kind of maths we work.
So one common question for you all, I mean, I think most of the companies today are using data these days to lease a space in mall or to scale their business. So how do you see data as an important factor in decision making for leasing a space in malls or a high street? Sahil?
See, in my opinion, data definitely plays a vital role. If you see, nowadays there was a time when data was more of a EQ. But today, I think it's more on the emotional quotient. Any location where you have to search and you have to look for a property and all that, it's getting on a pin code basis. It's getting very specific where you need. I think everybody is today looking for a social print, that where you get a maximum like a footprint on your website. How your other store, like what we do, we try to predict the sale to the maximum. We do a lot of data because good part with us, we are around a 16, 18-year-old company. We have a lot of data. We have a lot of data to analyze. So data is the king nowadays for any store. What we people do, we can only give some info with our experience. But I think the property selection is through data. It's data which finally decide that where a store has to be.
So Srijit, how do you use, I mean, just one last question for Srijit. So how do you utilize data to
So
use, you utilize the data
correct.
in your business?
Yeah, so in decision making today, data has become a very important part, both as Sahil was mentioning, it's internal as well as external. See, because today when you reach to an extent of so many number of stores, you have so much of customer data within to understand and to compare same kind of catchments. Correct? If you're already present, what are you doing? And if it's a similar catchment, what is expected out of it? Of course, hindsight is always 2020, so there are cases when that fails. But end of the day, there is usage of data to reach to that conclusion. Similarly, I mean, external data comes into factor in more to verify or to assess that you have made the correct decision after you have made it, is what I would say. Because even today, I have not seen a data which can actually tell me that this is the exact location where you should open. A data cannot tell me that. Correct? It is that BD manager who's on the ground, who spent that time in that city on the ground to identify, assess, did that marking with his hands at how many customers are walking, who makes that decision. But of course, you can use an external data to verify and to check that, whatever has come through that primary assessment is a correct behavior, and we can open a cafe there or a store there.
Great. I think the times is up. And thank you so much for your wonderful insight. And thank you, audience, for patiently listening to us. Thank you so much.